So, Melissa, how does it feel to have absolutely no one show up? I let out a deep sigh and instinctively tilted my head back, staring blankly at the ceiling as though it could provide an answer. Behind Alex stood a crowd of about 60 of our coworkers, their smug grins glaring through the camera as if they were all in on some cruel inside joke. It was the undeniable proof that Alex had chosen his bond with Knight and the other men over me, over us. See, Melissa? This is what happens when a woman like you thinks she can go against me. Why don't you take a moment to think about your actions? Alex, come on, back me up here. Shoved forward by Knight, Alex spoke up, his words desperate and hollow. It's your own fault, Melissa. I told you to respect what Knight was doing, but you just had to go against him. Exactly. And you, Melissa, didn't you grow up with mommy and daddy paying for everything? If that's the case, then you and your folks should learn to appreciate the men who carry you, or you'll end up tossed aside like trash. I stared at the screen, frozen in disbelief. Was this really the man I had chosen to love? The one I thought I could trust with my life? I'm Melissa Turner, 25 years old, a devoted fan of mystery novels. Honestly, my job is just a means to an end to fund my passion for reading. The company I work for, Iron Tech Incorporated, is a modestly sized factory operation, but it holds an impressive number of patents and commands respect in the metalworking industry. Currently, there are about 60 employees. Most of them are skilled metal workers and craftsmen. For a company of its size, I guess it's a respectable number, but like many small-town businesses, it came with its share of problems. The most glaring issue? I'm the only female employee. Not that they deliberately hired only men. After all, there's a women's restroom and even a locker room, basic amenities to accommodate female staff. So why am I the only woman left? The answer is simple. Melissa, you're looking a little pale there. That voice belonged to Knight, one of our most senior craftsmen, boasting 25 years of experience in metalworking. He's the self-proclaimed king of the workplace, and his nickname Knight is just as pretentious as he is. From the day I joined this company, he's made it his mission to torment me. It's exhausting, to say the least. The fact that he's in his 40s and still single? No surprise there. What's worse is that he genuinely believes his jokes are funny and waits expectantly for me to laugh. Honestly, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he's the reason every other woman in this company has quit. If you don't have a boyfriend, they tease you. If you do, they tease you even more. Wear a skirt? They'll comment. Cut your hair? They'll mock that too. It's outright harassment, but in this male-dominated environment, they somehow twist it into affection, while everyone else just laughs and looks the other way. Well, you're no fun. With that attitude, no guy's ever going to want to marry you. As if it were the most natural thing in the world, Knight plopped his empty tumbler and sweat-soaked towel on my desk. The stench wafted up to my nose, making me gag. The sheer discomfort made my skin crawl, and Knight seemed to revel in my disgusted expression. Go ahead and wash these for me, will ya? And don't make that face. Think of it as a lesson to make you a proper woman. The smug, pitying grin on his face, like a teacher dealing with a slow student, was utterly revolting. If only I could say that out loud. To seasoned workers like Knight, a 20-something woman like me is nothing more than a mascot. In their eyes, all women are playthings, pets at best. While his harassment is excused as jokes or discipline, the moment a woman talks back, it's labeled as insubordination, met with fury and punishment. How many women have been driven out of this workplace because of that? And it's not just the women. Even the male employees who dare to oppose Knight's behavior are mercilessly bullied until they leave. But even in such a hostile environment, there was one person who brought me some semblance of comfort. Melissa, are you okay? Don't let them get to you. With those words, Alex slipped a small folded piece of paper into my hand before walking away. This man, Alex Reed, would eventually become my husband. As one of the few salespeople in the company, Alex was also one of the rare employees who didn't cozy up to Knight. Dealing with guys like that is just a waste of time. Whenever something happened, Alex would always say that and cheer me up. But that wasn't all. He would take on tasks that Knight dumped on me, or quietly pull me away when Knight was harassing me. If I was upset or frustrated, he'd always listen to me vent after work. The only reason I managed to endure this company for so long was because Alex was there. Before I knew it, we had naturally started dating. Let's see. I carefully unfolded the note Alex had slipped into my hand. It was folded and tied so tightly, like some kind of fortune slip, that I had to be extra cautious not to tear it. With my clumsy hands, I was at real risk of shredding it into something unreadable. In fact, that kind of meticulousness was one of the things that frustrated me most about Alex. He was just so incredibly painfully cautious about everything, and that included our relationship as well. We need to keep our relationship a secret. Not long after we started dating, Alex had made it clear we weren't to act familiar in public. No smiles, no casual conversations. I couldn't even greet him with a friendly nod. Why? I couldn't help but ask. We were both single, no exes or complications to worry about. Why couldn't we just be open about our relationship? Because Melissa, you're already a target for Knight's nonsense, aren't you? And you know what would happen if he found out. Hearing it so bluntly didn't make it any easier to accept. If anything, it weighed even heavier on me. That's why I'm trying to keep you off his radar as much as possible. And yet the gentle smile that followed would always make that weight feel just a little lighter. Per Alex's instructions, all our conversations were either through encrypted chats or these overly secure, intricately folded notes. Eventually, it became an unspoken rule between us. But Alex's biggest mistake was failing to realize how that secrecy looked to everyone else. After all, we went from chatting openly to complete silence at work overnight. It was glaringly unnatural. And of course, the first person to notice the shift was Knight. Hey Melissa, what's your deal? What kind of woman ignores a guy like Alex? To him, it didn't look like we'd grown distant. It looked like I was deliberately giving Alex the cold shoulder. In a small company like ours, singling someone out like that would be a serious issue. But just as I stopped to explain, Alex stopped me. No, it's my fault. She hasn't done anything wrong. Oh, come on. Well, that was technically true. Saying it like that just made me look worse. Honestly, just telling the truth would have been better. But by then it was too late. As I feared, the men immediately rallied around Alex, labeling me as the cold, ungrateful woman who ignored him. From that point on, I was enemy number one. And from that day forward, the atmosphere around me shifted entirely. My personal belongings vanished from my desk, only to be found the next day reduced to ashes in the factory's incinerator. I wasn't given any assignments, left to sit idly at my desk all day, isolated from the workflow. And that was just a mild harassment, to say the least. Worse, Knight once tried to drag me into his car after work. Another time I found my water bottle tampered with, reeking of alcohol. Each time I only managed to avoid the worst because I sensed something was off, but I knew I wouldn't always be so lucky. One day, I finally confronted Alex about it. I can't keep working in this environment. What do you even think of me? Am I someone you're so ashamed of that you feel the need to hide me? We've been dating for a year by then. Throughout that time, Alex would constantly say, I want to marry you someday. So naturally, I assumed I would eventually become his wife. Yet even as I was being humiliated at work, Alex continued to act as though I were a stranger. Could I really build a life with someone like this? I poured out my fears in a text, desperate for some kind of reassurance. He read my message, of course, but didn't bother to reply. But I was too exhausted to chase after him, so I just closed the app and left it. I was prepared for this to be the end. 3 days later, however, everything changed. Melissa, will you marry me? I'll tell everyone at work myself. Alex had proposed, out of nowhere. But of course it was by text message. A proposal through an app. How modern. My mom was less than impressed when I told her. But me, I was happy. Alex, cautious to a fault, had finally taken action. I thought this was it. The way out of my personal hell. I believed it with every fiber of my being. But who could have predicted what came next? The morning after we announced our engagement at the company meeting, a new nightmare began. Don't bother with the wedding ceremony because we'll throw you a party instead. Alex had nervously announced our engagement at the morning meeting, and predictably, Knight was the first to respond. Alex and I had already decided we wouldn't have a wedding. The reason was simple. We didn't want to invite anyone from work. The thought of introducing someone like Knight to my family was nauseating. On this, Alex and I have been in complete agreement. Actually, we've decided not to have— What? Knight's yell cut me off mid-sentence. As the self-proclaimed boss of the office, he clearly never imagined that I, his subordinate, would reject his generous offer. His pride wounded, he scowled and glared at me like I just insulted his entire family. Knight's wounded pride was written all over his face. He furrowed his brows and glared at me like I had just spit in his coffee. Honestly, it was exhausting. Still, if he pushed his luck, it would give me the perfect excuse to involve the police. Go ahead, I thought. Try me. Fueled by my silent defiance, I stared right back at him, refusing to back down. Hey, let's all calm down. Wait, what? Startled, I turned toward the voice. To my shock, Alex, with his usual sheepish smile, stepped between us and said, since Knight went out of his way to offer, why not let him handle it? As I stood there stunned, Knight shot me a smug grin and said, exactly, see? This is the kind of thing only guys understand. Knight slapped Alex on the shoulder repeatedly, clearly pleased with himself, and Alex unbelievably looked a little proud. It seemed Alex valued his newfound brotherhood with Knight more than keeping his promise to me. So there you have it. Just stay quiet, Melissa. Things only go wrong when women try to take charge after all. Don't worry, we'll make it a party to remember. And just like that, the men decided they'd plan our wedding party, completely ignoring my input or my existence. At first, I figured it'd be something low-key, a quick toast in the break room maybe. Even Alex seemed to think so, but we were both sorely mistaken. By the next day, the workplace had turned into a carnival, as if they were prepping for high school homecoming. It's gotta be steak. Top grade, none of that cheap stuff. And booze, only the best craft options from across the country. What is this, a VIP gala? Clearly, a simple toast wasn't even on their radar. The menu was all meat, and more meat. Oh, and some seafood thrown in. Next to me, Alex's face paled with every passing minute. Knight kept dropping receipts for premium ingredients onto Alex's desk, creating a small mountain of debt. Apparently, the costs of this extravaganza were to be split between us, the happy couple. See, Alex? If you just said no from the start, we wouldn't be in this mess. Is it normal for the bride and groom to foot the bill for a company-hosted wedding party? A party we didn't even ask for was about to drain our savings. So what's your plan? Frustrated by Alex's deer-in-the-headlights reaction, I demanded an answer. Just a rough estimate of their purchases so far came out to over 10 grand. And now, Knight and his cronies had abandoned their work entirely, glued to a computer screen as they picked out even more food to serve. So was Alex really planning to frame this as a gesture of goodwill and take on the cost? Or was there still time to put an end to this madness? Any rational person would choose the latter. Yet even now, Alex hesitated to make a decision. Considering our future relationship with these guys, maybe it's better if we just accept it? If this is such a kind gesture, then you can handle it on your own. But don't expect me to stick around for this nonsense. In fact, I think I'll be stepping out of this marriage altogether. With that, I grabbed the towering stack of receipts from Alex's desk and marched straight over to Knight, who was laughing and hollering with his cronies. Thank you, Knight. As of this moment, the wedding is off, so please don't bother with any further preparations. The look on Knight's face was like that of a demon who had just been denied his soul. His clenched fists trembled with barely restrained rage. If he wanted to get physical, I was ready. This time, I wouldn't hesitate to call the police. I met his glare with an unflinching calm. Wait, Melissa, okay, I get it. Once again, Alex stepped in between us. Why was he always jumping in like this, tripping over himself to play the peacemaker? It was almost pathetic to watch, but this time there was an earnestness in his tone. Knight, maybe we should pause the party preparations for a bit. I think Melissa is just feeling overwhelmed right now. With that, Alex gently placated Knight before disappearing with him into another room. When they returned a while later, Knight was grinning ear to ear, his demeanor unnervingly friendly as he bowed slightly toward me. Sorry about that, Melissa. You're right, I guess we got a little carried away. We'll call it off. No hard feelings. Knight, of all people, apologizing to a woman like me? That was a once-in-a-century event. For a brief, foolish moment, I felt moved by his apparent sincerity and decided to call off the breakup with Alex. Looking back now, if only I'd stood firm then, I could have avoided what happened next. In the end, the topic of whether we'd actually get married faded into silence, along with the absurd wedding party plans. No one mentioned them again. Whenever I asked anyone what was going on, they just repeat, "Don't worry about it," without offering any real answers. I asked Alex about it over and over again, but his response never changed. "Don't worry, I'm handling everything. You don't need to stress about it." How could I not stress when his words only made me more uneasy? Still, I wanted to believe that if Alex said it was fine, it must be fine. And so, I left it all in his hands as the day before the wedding party finally arrived. Tomorrow, we're meeting in the company conference room. Knight and the others have already arranged for the dress and tuxedo. The day before, I stopped Alex to confirm everything one last time. Are you sure tomorrow's party will go smoothly? Are we really doing this? Can I really trust you on this? It's fine. You just need to show up. Everything's taken care of. He smiled as he spoke, and I made the decision to trust him. I decided to attend the party Knight and his crew had so graciously planned, but when the day of the party arrived, what is this? The conference room, which they had designed as the venue, was completely empty. Panicking, I rushed to the locker room where I'd been told my dress would be waiting. That was supposed to be where Knight and the others had prepared my wedding gown. But what awaited me instead, I've seen this at a toy store before. It was a cheap, shiny Halloween-style costume, a child's dress at that. The size tag read 10-year-old. My mother, who had accompanied me, stood frozen in disbelief. This is horrible. Her voice cracked slightly, and I knew it wasn't my imagination. Of all people, I never wanted my mom to witness this. As I reached to take the dress off the hanger, I noticed a small piece of paper tucked underneath it. It read, "If you want to be a woman, try fitting into this. Got it, you spoiled brat?" I stared at the note, my mind blank as though I'd just been doused with ice water. Next to it was a CD-ROM, just as carelessly placed. Scrawled on the surface, in permanent marker, were the words "Surprise Movie" from the team. Dread washed over me, but I'd come this far, I had to see it. I took it to the old shared computer in the conference room, shoved it into the tray, and hit play. After a few moments of loading, the screen came to life, showing Alex. Yes, Alex, the man who was supposed to be my future husband. His expression was ambiguous, a cross between a smile and a grimace. I'd seen it enough to know he was hiding something. Next to him was, of course, Knight. "Hey, Melissa. So how does it feel to have 0 attendees?" I let out a long, shaky sigh and tilted my head back, staring at the ceiling as if it could somehow steady me. On the screen behind Alex stood the entire office, 60 smirking employees, their grins mocking me through the camera lens. It was a blatant declaration. Alex had chosen his allegiance to Knight and the others over me. "This is what happens when a woman like you tries to go against me, Melissa. Maybe now you'll think twice about stepping out of line. Come on, Alex, tell her yourself." Prodded by Knight, Alex blurted out with the air of someone who had nothing left to lose. "This is your fault, Melissa. I told you to respect Knight and what he was trying to do, but you wouldn't listen." "Exactly. And Melissa, didn't you grow up being spoiled rotten? If that's the case, you should have been more grateful to the men who provide for you. Otherwise, you're just trash waiting to be thrown out." I stared at the screen, unable to believe what I was hearing. Was this really the man I had loved? The man I thought would protect me? The man I had planned to spend my life with? Was nothing more than a spineless coward. On the screen, the office burst into laughter, their jeering faces a blur as tears welled up in my eyes. Beside me, my mother gently placed a hand on my shoulder. "Don't listen to them, Melissa. You don't need to let their words shake you." Her steady voice brought me back to reality. I wiped my tears and stood up slowly. "All right." Then, turning to my mother, I said, "Let's finish this." She smiled and nodded. A few minutes later, I had everyone called back to the conference room and gathered in front of the large display screen. The employees stood there smug and self-satisfied, clearly expecting some kind of gratitude or submission from me. Alex was among them, his expression somewhere between guilt and false bravado. "Thank you all for your heartfelt efforts." I bowed slightly and then, with deliberate calm, pressed a few buttons on the screen. What appeared next was footage from the office's security cameras. It showed Knight and his cronies gleefully tossing my personal belongings into the incinerator. There were also clips of Knight harassing former female employees and rifling through my desk. The room fell deathly silent. Knight went pale, and Alex avoided eye contact with anyone, his gaze darting nervously around the room. This is cold, hard evidence of what you've done, and this is the reality of what I've endured. I took a deep breath and gave my mother a subtle nod. She stepped forward immediately, standing tall and confident as someone in her position. "As the CEO of the Marlowe Group, which you all know is the parent company of this firm, I hereby declare, effective immediately, this company will undergo a complete restructuring." The smug faces in the room were replaced by shock and fear. Furthermore, certain employees, including Mr. Knight, will be dismissed immediately. The air in the conference room turned frigid as everyone stood frozen in place. Knight's face drained of all color, his eyes darting frantically as if searching for an escape. Alex stood pale and slack-jawed, unable to muster a word in his defense. "We have all the evidence. Your actions, as documented, constitute serious legal violations. Moving forward, the legal department and our attorneys will handle this matter." My mother's resolute tone echoed in the room, leaving no room for argument. The employees began to murmur among themselves, panic spreading like wildfire. Whispers of, "What do we do?" and "This isn't what I signed up for," rippled through the crowd. "You gotta be kidding me. You're firing me." Knight clenched his fists and took a threatening step toward my mother, but before he could go any further, the door to the conference room swung open. Several uniformed police officers stepped in, their presence commanding immediate attention. "Are you Mr. Knight Robbins?" At the sound of his name, Knight froze in place. "You are under investigation for embezzlement. We'll discuss the details at the station. Please come with us." As the officers produced handcuffs, Knight's bravado crumbled, and he sank to his knees. "I didn't do anything wrong. This is all a misunderstanding," he shouted, his voice shrill with desperation, but no one stepped forward to help him. The officers led Knight away, leaving the room steeped in an eerie silence. I took a deep breath and surveyed the remaining employees. This is the result of the choices y'all made. I reached out for help so many times, and not one of you listened. No one dared to argue. Heads hung low, and the room remained silent. With a glance at my mother, I turned and left the room. A few weeks later, I had started a new chapter of my life. At my mother's suggestion, I had accepted a position at the Marlowe Group's overseas branch. A new environment, new connections, and freedom. For the first time in years, I felt like I was in control of my own life again. Looking back, I knew I'd made the right choice that day. Leaving that workplace and those men was the key to my liberation. As for Alex, word had it he couldn't find a new job and ended up moving back in with his parents. Knight's cronies had similarly scattered, most of them disappearing into obscurity. When I heard these updates, I felt nothing. Perhaps that was proof that I had finally moved on. Now I walk through the streets of London. In the city I'd always dreamed of, the setting of my favorite detective novels, I'm ready to begin a new story. Because the leading role in my life belongs to no one else but me. With my head held high and my heart light, I face forward. "Thank you, God." I whispered those words and smiled. A few months later, I had fully settled into my new life in London. My days were busy but fulfilling. Working on exciting projects with my new colleagues in this dream city was nothing like the suffocating environment of my old job. The team here valued my opinions, and everyone was treated equally, creating a supportive and respectful workplace. One day, sitting in a cafe with my coworkers, a memory from my past crept into my mind. Knight's sneering face, Alex's hollow words, and the jeers of the other employees briefly flickered through my mind, but strangely, it didn't hurt anymore. It felt more like a distant event, a stepping stone that had shaped the person I had become. Hearing the laughter of my colleagues around me, I smiled. "Thank you, all of you," I whispered in my heart. Without those experiences, I might never have made it here. My new home was a cozy apartment in a quiet London neighborhood. On weekends, I often strolled through nearby parks or explored the city's many museums. I always carried one of my favorite detective novels in my bag. No matter how hectic the day, I always made time at night to brew a cup of tea and read in the comfort of my home. Those peaceful moments were my sanctuary. At work, I had gradually earned my colleagues' trust and was now leading a major project. The responsibility was heavy, but so was the sense of fulfillment. Collaborating as equals, sharing ideas, and laughter made the work genuinely enjoyable. I never would have believed a workplace like this could exist, but now it was my reality. But what truly filled me with joy was that I had finally learned to believe in myself. I didn't need to rely on anyone else to carve my own path. Every time I realized that, a warm sense of pride filled my chest. One evening, as I gazed out at the glittering London skyline, I quietly renewed my resolve. I'll never lose sight of myself again. I whispered the words as I jotted down my next goal in my notebook. No matter what lay ahead, I would live my life unapologetically as myself. The past couldn't be changed, but the future was mine to shape. Because of those painful days, I was standing here now. And that future shone brightly, because I was the one making it shine. I would keep walking boldly down the path I had chosen. With that belief, I smiled and closed my eyes. And I felt the curtain rising on a brand new story.